Greetings, welcome to the Transforming Assessment webinars. This is a joint session with the eAssessment Association, and today we will have a couple of award winners presenting their piece. But first, we would like to do an introduction from the eAssessment Association. Priya, would you like to begin, please?
Yes, good morning or good evening, everyone. My name is Priya Dutta. I'm an assessment manager at the consultancy Alpha Plus, and I'm on the board of the eAssessment Association. And today's session is a showcase for two of our winners. So a little bit about who the eAssessment Association actually are. First of all, we're a non-profit membership body, and we have three major objectives. Number one, to provide professional support and to facilitate the debate for everyone in this sphere. Number two, we want to create and communicate all of the positive contributions that technology is making to all forms of assessment. And number three, we'd like to develop statements of good practice for suppliers and consumers of assessment technology. We have 4,800 members from every continent. We really are a global organisation. There are 17 of us on the board, and please, if you would like to join the board, do get in touch with us. We're always on the lookout for people to join. And we have 26 sponsors, and obviously we are always happy to welcome more. So to follow us online, we are at eAssess on Twitter, now known as X. We have thousands of followers. Please use the hashtag eAssessment. We have lots of platforms for collaboration. We've got the LinkedIn company page. We've also got a members discussion group. We've got various groups inside the eAssessment Association. And if you visit our website, you can listen and watch podcasts and webinars. We also present in person. We're not just online. If you'd like to join us in person, we have a conference every year. And we're very happy to join conferences and present in person. So obviously our website has lots of really useful content. You can read case studies, articles, we have a regular newsletter. There are lots of ways to keep in touch, and we would definitely recommend that you join. So what is our strategic focus? What are we trying to do? First of all, we want to educate and inform people. We're hoping to reach a much wider audience in the future, not just within our industry, but outside the industry as well. We also really want to focus on becoming more of a global organisation. We were set up in the UK, but we're very aware that the UK is not the be-all and end-all of assessment. We really welcome international perspectives, and we need this because we want to reflect all of our stakeholder communities internationally. We have a very diverse international membership, and also the users of eAssessment technology are all around the world. So the more of a global perspective we can get, the better. So on to our annual awards. We use this as an opportunity to showcase the best practice that's going on globally, and this is in both research and innovation in testing and assessment. And we're focusing on where the use of technology has enabled transformation, improved outcomes, and also enhanced learning and teaching. So the 10 categories of the awards are Lifetime Contribution, Best Practitioner of the Year, and we have two awards, both individual and team awards, Best Formative Assessment Project, Best Summative Assessment Project, Best Workplace or Talent Assessment Project, Most Innovative Use of Technology in Assessment, Best Transformational Project, Best Research, and Best International Implementation. So on to the winners. I'm very happy to announce that the Best Summative Assessment Project Award went to the British Council this year, and their winning entry was the British Council Primary English Test. And the Best Formative Assessment Project award went to BCS, the Chartered Institute for IT, and their submission was using generative AI to assess open response questions. And they're absolutely fascinating areas. And without further ado, I'd like us to hear from the British Council, who will tell us all about the British Council Primary English Test. And over to you.
Hi everyone, my name's Peter Cormack and I'm Language Test Data Manager at the British Council. Just to start off by saying that everyone in the Primary English Test team is thrilled that our work has been recognised in the eAssessment Awards. As an organisation that has been working in English language teaching, learning and assessment for almost 90 years, with the goal of enabling people around the world to access life-changing opportunities, we strive continuously for improvement and innovation. And I'm going to talk about improvement and innovation in the development of the primary English test. So what does that mean in this case? Well, the hope in designing the test was to place the learner at the centre of the process and build the test around them, as opposed to focusing on the technology and building out. Decisions made in the development of the test were made with this idea centred in mind. So we thought, how can we use technology to make the process of assessment as natural and relaxed for younger learners as possible? And we thought, how can we give them a chance to shine and demonstrate their abilities in English, with the hope of not even realizing or focusing on the fact that it's the reason that they're in the school completing the primary English test in the first place. So the design and the planning for the primary English test started in 2019 when the British Council's team of researchers interviewed schools in the academic community in East Asia, Europe and Latin America. We received the feedback that teachers and parents wanted a test that's aligned to the common European framework of reference, that assesses the 4 skills with accurate scoring, that doesn't last too long and delivers fast results, and that's taken on computer and is engaging for kids, and that's delivered in schools. So attempting to create a test that has features like this isn't innovative in and of itself. So what innovations are there in the test? Well, one key innovation is the story-based and gamified approach in the test. I'll speak a little bit more about this and explain more, but you can see here, the aim of this is to maximize engagement and reduce stress. So thinking of that aim, I said at the start, to help children perform at their best. Another innovation is the machine scoring used to score test takers speaking and writing. That's a first for the British Council. And by using this automated scoring, the turnaround time for results is reduced whilst their accuracy is maintained. The structure of the test is adaptive with gamification elements. The design follows principles from games-based learning and assessment, engaging the learner with meaningful content-rich context for completing the set of interrelated activities from a story and representing real-life communicative situations. The test is divided into stages rather than skills, and it consists of a mixture of discrete items and integrated tasks. The test structure takes the learner on a journey, not just in terms of telling a story, but also in terms of adaptivity. So being able to let learners demonstrate what they can do, and so that the test can home in on their precise ability by selecting tasks that's appropriate for their level. The design of the task features progressively deeper, more complex skills over the course of the test, sampling what students can do, and the aim is to replicate the immersive experience of playing a digital game with a strong storyline and narrative in the test. The activities in the test have an authentic purpose. They seek to elicit meaningful language use, provide students with opportunities to use language across multiple contexts, and by interacting with characters from the story. So the aim is, by engaging the learners in this way, the test can reduce any stress around assessment and allow children to perform at their best. So I'm going to speak a little bit more about the stage adaptive design. So it's not, as I said, it's not organized around sections for the 4 language skills, but presents tasks testing these skills either individually or as integrated tasks testing more than one skill. So the fundamental organization of the test is around this stage adaptive design instead, which you can see in this diagram, and it's linked to different levels of the Common European Framework, the 3 stages there. So you can see everyone takes module 1. This targets pre-A1 through A2 levels of abilities, and it contains reading and listening items only. Stage 2 modules assess reading, listening, and speaking. There's 2.1 that targets primarily A1, but also looks above at pre-A1 and looks below at pre-A1 and above at A2, just in case the stage 1 routing was not accurate. If test takers have been routed to module 2.2, this module is primarily targeting A2, but it also includes above and below A1, B1 to account for these errors, like I said. And then following the same logic, we go from 2 to 3 in module 3. Each have their primary CFR targets from the Common European Framework, but they also contain items tapping into adjacent CFR levels. And the stage 3 modules assess speaking and writing skills. So for lower level learners, this design allows them to complete the story with its gamified elements, demonstrate their proficiency on tasks at their level, but also slightly above and below, still to give them chances to perform and complete the test without being presented with tasks in the second and particularly in the last stage of the test that are significantly above their level. So the aim is this, that if you're a lower level student, you're not being demotivated by tasks that are just stretching you too much. Conversely, higher level learners will go through the test with an increasing level of challenge that will keep them engaged, and it will give them a full range of tasks in which to demonstrate their proficiency. The test features automated scoring of test takers' spoken and written responses. We use scoring models that feature rigorous development to ensure the accuracy of their scoring models. There's a range of types of speaking and writing tasks in the test. We include tasks that have open-ended responses, so learners have a chance to creatively respond to the content of the text, producing longer turns in their speaking and writing. In terms of the speaking, an automated speech recognition model was developed using a specific model designed for success in recognizing children's voices in terms of recognizing phonemes and words that they're producing. This is very important for enabling the accuracy of the speaking scores. Another key element of the development with the scoring models to ensure their accuracy was a robust development process. So field testing for the British Council Primary English Test featured thousands of young learners taking the test in many countries around the world. This enabled us to train the AI scoring models using a large group of learners' real responses to the test tasks. Getting this large sample ensures that a diverse range of learners are represented in field tests in terms of their accents and their proficiency levels. This is important for ensuring the success of the scoring models with this diverse group, so that they're functioning effectively for all types of learners included in the test taker population. The types of tasks and the scoring models are already proven. There's a wide body of research on their use in other contexts. And during the development of these scoring models, we prioritize the explainability of them. So that means when the different features that are used by the AI models are selected, we're thinking of linguistic elements of it. How can we explain this by linking it directly to the test construct? Okay, and now I'm going to show you some examples of what the test looks like, only in images, unfortunately. So these stills come from the practice test. This is used to familiarize learners. Teachers can familiarize the students in their class with the test by taking this shorter version of the test. And I'm going to show you some examples of the content in it and the tasks that appear in it. So these are 3 of the characters of the story, just as they're being introduced in it. There's Cloud, Adam, and Jay. So this still comes from one of the first tasks in the test, targeting lower learners and lower level learners. So this task is a vocabulary one in which they're matching elements in the picture to the correct words. So, you know, things like chair, for example. This is an example of one of the more open-ended speaking tasks in the test. So as part of the story in the practice test, learners help Adam and Jay join Ms. Cloud's Super Ninja training course. And for this task, they're playing the role of another student in the course, retelling the story of what another character, Ms. Monster, did last night in the park to Adam and Jay. And the purpose of this image, so when they hear the story, it's animated to see what the events of the story were, and then they can use this image as an aid to help them recollect what they heard. And it provides contextualization for the task as well. This is one of the speaking tasks that's assessed by the AI models. So the AI model will be looking for 4 different features of the test taker's spoken production. It'll be looking for their pronunciation, the level of fluency they display, how they use grammar and vocabulary in their response, and how successfully they completed the task. So yeah, that's it. I just want to end by saying, you know, the test was developed by a large team of dedicated professionals, both within and outside the British Council. So through the stages of scoping the initial opportunity, creating the academic concept, incorporating AI to develop a test customized to be engaging and have quick, accurate scoring, ensuring a smooth customer experience via an intuitive delivery platform, and launching the product. It was all enabled by the work of colleagues within the British Council and also partners at Metametrics and TCS, working with commitment and enthusiasm. So it's fantastic to get this recognition, and thank you very much for the chance to speak about the primary English test.
Thanks, Peter. Just before Priya continues, I put a link to a demo video of the British Council test that you might want to have a look at after the session. It's a 60-second video, but we thought we would just move on to the next one at this time. So thanks, Priya. Would you like to introduce the next section?
Yes, thanks. And just a note, I know there are some questions in the chat, and we will field questions after the presentations. So yes, thank you so much, Peter. I think that was a technologically complex but also really engaging assessment. So many congratulations for winning the award. On to the Best Formative Assessment Project Award. BCS, the Chartered Institute for IT, won with their submission using generative AI to assess open response questions. So I will hand over to John from BCS, and let's hear about this latest innovation.
Hello everyone, and thank you, Priya. Yes, so as Priya said, I'm John Maskrey. I'm Senior Digital Product Developer at BCS, the Chartered Institute for IT. We are an awarding body, so we develop certifications, professional certifications, endpoint assessment for apprenticeships. We also develop qualifications for schools and higher education as well. And we're also a membership organisation, so we've got just over 70,000 members across the globe. And we also work with policymakers to inform sort of professional standards in IT, and obviously behind lots of big initiatives and loads of things about AI and security. So it's it's fun to be where we are. And obviously we were very happy to win this award because it was linked very much to quite a large initiative for us. So I'm just going to progress forward. And on to the next, which was towards the end of last year. We had the opportunity to develop a certification program developed specifically for anyone developing AI systems, applications, and it was all about developing an understanding and a practical understanding of applying ethical standards and frameworks to ensure that whatever we build is responsible, it's secure, and is for the good of society, so to speak. Michael Manelli, the new Lord Mayor of London, as part of his campaign Connect Prosper, invited us to work on this initiative So it's been a big opportunity for us. And as we were developing this certification, it was quite interesting because we sort of went on our own journey of exploring, the ethics that go into designing AI, the governance, some of those regulatory implications, but what's needed from professionals to do this well and to do this responsibly, and also what's needed by employers to do it too. And through the design, we identified, as this was quite nuanced subject matter to some degree, it's not just right or wrong. And even though we were designing an online exam at the end of it that was our typical sort of multiple choice, etc. Assessment, we were very keen that we could build in a more formative style assessment in which we could present case studies to or real world scenarios, to those studying the online course, and provide them with open response answer boxes to basically apply some of their ethical thinking, or to evaluate the situation and identify means in which to approach it to ensure ethical outcomes, or even to identify where there could be ethical concerns that should be addressed. And with this, we partnered with one of our suppliers, Tintisha Technologies, to develop a plugin for Moodle, which is our learning platform we use, which would then work with ChatGPT to provide this sort of facility. Just before I progress, by the way, as well, I just want to say I really enjoyed Peter's presentation, and I actually really want to do one of those Super Ninja training courses. They look a lot of fun. Now, just as a bit of an overview of the function, the feature that we've developed. Obviously, we were very keen to build in that automated feedback. Again, this is for those self-studiers, those studying in their own time, where we didn't want to have a delay in them getting feedback. Where we also wanted to, and this was the interesting sort of twist on it, we wanted to build in a practical use of AI, almost to showcase its use within the content of the course itself. And we've engineered it so the learners could also then critique the AI in terms of the feedback they were receiving, and enable us to collect both quantitative and qualitative data to evaluate how well it was performing. As I said, it's to assess more nuanced subject matter, so not it's A or B. It's in some respects it's looking at situations and making best judgments. The plugin that we developed with Tintisha Technologies as well, it would allow us to be fully customize that marking criteria as well. We think about making sure that the AI can consistently mark, like you would with any assessment. We need a good, robust marking criteria. It needs to be very clear, so that the likelihood of it awarding marks more fairly would be more attainable. As I said, we wanted to include that option for user review and rate feedback given by the AI. Ensuring that we maintain human oversight, of course, was very, very critical. We couldn't just switch this on and let the AI do all the feedback unsort of supervised. So we've built in tools to have a good picture and a view of all the submissions, what's been submitted by the learner, what was the feedback given by the AI, and then how did the individuals rate that feedback, so that we could gather up scores and look at common issues potentially, or where we might need to tweak even the marking criteria, for instance. So it's been quite a journey to refine it. We didn't just switch this on, by the way. We did a lot of internal testing, and then we took it to pilot, but I'll get onto that in a little bit. And we did some calculations, and we thought if we employed like a manual marker to mark all of these short activities as part of this course, it could equate to this amount of time. And so we thought, with this in place, it had the opportunity to reduce some of that. We know that sort of marking load for teachers is a common challenge and a problem. So it's looking at where we can implement these sort of solutions to support and free up the teachers' time then to provide value at certain points, and just to manage some of that capacity. I would say as well, within this solution as well, we have built in a second step verification that you can switch on. So if you want to, you can have a teacher review it before the feedback is released to the learner. For the purpose of this course, we kept it instant, so that we could assess and evaluate its use for those self-study learners learning in their own time, where that instant feedback wouldn't be feasible from a manual marker. Obviously, a cost-effective solution that could be scaled. It's built on open source technology, and obviously it's something we're continuing to evolve. And also we could track our usage as well of tokens. So each time submissions were made and returned, we could see how much credit is being used as well, which is kind of cool. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, if I remember correctly, oh, sorry, I'm just going to give you a quick overview. So in effect, how it works is the learner submits their response to the scenario-based question through open response questions. That gets then sent across to ChatGPT via a secure API, using with the mark scheme and the scenario details. ChatGPT can then review it, send it back with a score and some feedback. We built in a means of sanitizing the response back from ChatGPT to make sure there was nothing malicious within it. That wouldn't be, just in case for whatever reason the person submitting was trying to encourage anything to come back, malicious links or anything like that. And then it would be displayed to the learner, and obviously we could maintain that oversight and see. So I'll just give you a quick demo, and obviously this is a simulation. It's single individual images of how it would usually work. But here is our online course, and as you can see, alongside the learning, at regular points we put in certain scenarios. In this first one, we were talking about the use of AI in the police force, for instance, how it could be used to assist them within there. So we present the scenario to the learner. Some of the other scenarios we included around, AI in healthcare or AI for recruitment, and lots of different uses, lots of different concerns, lots of different things that would need to be approached wisely to ensure responsible use. Now, the question here is asking me to describe 2 ethical concerns people might have about this type of system. And if I, jump across. So I provide my first answer, and I've given a very reasonable answer here around historical crime data that might have been used to train the system, might actually run the risk of bias in effect, and it could lead to potential infringements of civil rights. And if I was to then provide a second answer, there is the risk of a large gorilla with laser eyes destroying the city. Now that could happen, you never know. But I think in the context of this scenario, it's unlikely. And as soon as I get to submit my responses to ChatGPT, it then returned a mark. There was only a possible 2 marks for this activity, so 1 mark for each reasonable answer. And within a couple of seconds, I've got a quite a detailed feedback from ChatGPT. So it's looking at it's recognized that I've only provided 1 relevant answer, and I need to carefully consider it. Both, providing 2 good answers. It's given me some suggestions on other types of concerns I could consider and how I could improve my answer. So it's not too bad. It's quite reasonable what it's provided me with here. And part of this, again, just thinking on that, people learning from these activities, we didn't want to just give you've got it right, brilliant, or no, try again. We wanted to also give them some further content or thought to think about, actually, these are other considerations or concerns. Maybe you could improve your answer this way. Like I said, we then built in the option for the learners to review the feedback. So I put here useful feedback. I'll aim to that next attempt. No fooling this AI. And then I can rate it out of 5 stars. I'm going to say 4 out of 5. It's not too bad. It's not perfect, but it's not too bad. I'm quite happy with that. And as I said, this feedback would then be stored within our system, and we'll be able to view responses, people's ratings, and gather that data to understand across the board how well it's performing. Now, it was quite a journey with that. There was a lot of experimenting with the prompts to ChatGPT, and also with our design of our mark schemes to hit the sort of sweet spot, so to speak. As you can see, here's an example of an earlier example where I did similar, a relevant answer and a slightly random answer. And you can see here the feedback from ChatGPT initially was good job on identifying 2 ethical concerns. However, it's then told me off for providing quite a ridiculous answer. It's given me some reasonable suggestions, but it's given me 2 marks, which it really shouldn't have done. So we were finding, how can we improve this? What would we need to do to make sure it can mark reasonably and identify when a random answer has been provided? And it was quite interesting because looking at the marking criteria, initially we'd only set out what would constitute 1 mark or a 2-mark answer. And we found actually the bit that was missing was explaining to the AI what would constitute no marks. So we had to detail out then, ignore any random answers, only provide answers that are really worthy of them. And as soon as we tweaked that mark scheme, instantly it started to perform, as you saw in the first example, much more efficiently, and it could identify when I was basically providing silly answers and where I was providing reasonable answers. Just to give you an overview of our approach, as I said, we were building this whilst we were also designing a program all about that approach to building AI systems reasonably, responsibly, applying ethics, understanding what governance needs to be in place, understanding some of that regulation that is coming through, some of that existing regulation like GDPR, etc. And this is just a top level overview of some of our approach. So we went from identifying an opportunity. So we could develop something like this. We engaged with our suppliers, so with Tintisha Technologies, who provided support and build for our site. We undertook a bit of a risk assessment, so doing a data protection impact assessment, so to look at what would be those common potential risks, what would we do to manage those, what's the likelihood, and how could we mitigate those? And we pulled all of that into a use case in which we set out, what are we setting out to achieve? What are the potential benefits? Who is this for? What are the solutions? What are those risks? How are we going to mitigate them? What's going to be our approach then? Who's going to be responsible? And obviously, again, part of the the EU AI Act that's come in a lot. Fundamentally, that is all about ensuring accountability for AI developers and deployers. So we're very keen to make sure we had that detailed out, that we had a good understanding of responsibilities, and then testing, how we're going to test it, how we're going to pilot it, and how we're going to keep evolving it. And that use case has become very much a working document that as we move through the mix, it becomes our sort of spec, but it also provides that story and narrative. And if you think about some of these regulations, and some of what's important is documentation being a basic thing, but quite a critical thing. We took it through approval, and then from getting the green light, we put it into assessment design. We did that testing and fine tuning that I spoke about earlier. We even did some pen testing as well to make sure there was no sort of security weak spots, so to speak. We did that full review and live internal training, so our teams understood what it was. We did a big showcase out to the business as well, and then we took it forward to deploy our certification program to a pilot of just over 100 learners to start to evaluate its use. I'll just move on. So just in summary, obviously some of the key things, that there is more to this as well, but I didn't want to put too much here. So that transparency, that's massive. So ensuring, one of the things we're very keen to be very clear on is, as people working through the learning program, they understood how we were using AI, the implications of being very clear about, don't, answer providing details about your organization or anything like that. These are all scenario based. It should be based the scenario. Sorry, your answer should be based on the scenarios, but also just so they understood where their responses were going and what was coming back, etc. The validity then, so obviously we were very keen to be able to assess sort of higher level comprehension, so not just multiple choice. We wanted to think about, well, how could you apply this to real world situations, and so how this type of approach could enable that to happen. Thinking again on the audience for this, these are people we want to build that capability on to do this in the real world. So we wanted to stretch and challenge their thinking and their understanding of those ethical principles. And then reliability, so being able to maintain that human oversight so that we could monitor and review, how reliable it's, how fair it's performing and how reliable it's performing. So through monitoring those responses, the marks awarded, and also then having that sort of course tutor sampling to see the quality of the responses as we go along. And just from our sort of pilot, so actually we delivered to just over 150 learners in the pilot stage. We have found actually the average was really quite positive across the board. Out of the 3 activities that we embedded in, it was averaging around a 4-star rating, which was showing that generally the people were responding quite well to it. We did have a mix of things. We had people acknowledging where they could improve and following that feedback, and that was great. Some challenged where they felt their answers were actually answering the question. And it was interesting, we could see some of those language barriers where someone had described something where the AI hadn't quite interpreted it and sort of suggested they could provide this response, which was sort of what they were saying. So we can see where there's those imperfections, but where it could be improved and enhanced. And that's, you know, where we're on this journey now to look at what we can do next. Again, this has been very much a pilot to see how it could perform. This capability is still in its infancy. We haven't yet even considered it in sort of summative or high stakes assessment. I think there's a journey to go on to get to that stage. But for the purpose of what we want to do for self-study, you know, more informal type of activities, it's proven to be quite an interesting tool to embed, and as I said, building in that opportunity for the learners to critique and to feedback has created quite an interesting activity in itself based on the subject matter of the course. And yeah, I think that's about it. So yeah, just if anyone's interested in keeping in touch with me, I'm on LinkedIn, and if you want to find out more about our ethical build of AI certification program, let us know. Yeah.
Thank you so much to John. I think that was a really innovative and timely solution for extended response assessments. I know in the sphere we've been talking about how to mark extended response responses for years and years now, and I know there's been a bit of chat in the sidebar about that. So Matthew, how would you like to do this? Are we opening the floor to questions?
Sure, we can do that. People can type their questions into the text chat. If they would like to ask a question via the microphone, there is a hands up symbol in the bottom center of the screen that you may use to ask a question via the microphone, but do put your hand up first so that we know we want to do that. In the meantime, there has been a couple of questions. So I think it was to where was it? Tim was asking, where was that question from Tim way back in the earlier part? Oh dear, scrolling. Where is it gone?
Got it. Yes, I found it.
Okay.
Was there an issue coming up with a story that worked for students from many different cultures? So that's obviously for Peter.
It's a good question. It leads on to an interesting point in the assessment development. So just to say, we drew on the experience we already have in developing assessments to be delivered across the world. We also drew on experience we have in factoring in equality, diversity and inclusion into our work. So this was reviewed for as well at several points in the development process from different perspectives, both the individual pieces of content, but also how it worked as a whole. So we also took it and trialed out with learners at 2 different stages. So we did it on a small scale in the beginning, in the initial development stage, going to COG labs, trialing it out with young learners. And one of the things we were interested in finding out was how engaging they found the content, received positive feedback. Then after that, when we had developed the whole range of content and the whole narrative of the test, and we took this to a larger sample of students in field testing, we also collected feedback and we received positive feedback at both stages from the learners. We did, though, make decisions on individual pieces of content following feedback. So there was a challenge in this. So we had to consider each piece of content, both from its place in the stage adaptive design, so that it's suitable for targeting the levels of learners it's supposed to target, but we also had to consider its place in the narrative. So typically if you have an issue with a specific item in a test, one option might be to just drop it and replace it with a completely different piece of content. But because each task also fulfills a part of the narrative, we also had to, when we were making decisions about content, still maintain its part in the narrative. So that added an extra level of challenge when we did decide to make those changes. But we did that, and it was a factor that was considered all the way through.
Tim has put a clarifying point. Your question was really about different cultures around the world. So you'd operate in a lot of different countries and cultures. Do the objects, do the stories gel with somebody from, a remote South American village versus somebody in, Sweden or something that might live in a modern society?
Yeah, so like I said, we're trialing it with different groups of learners. So we're not just going to one location to trial it. We identified the areas we're expecting to deliver the test. So on the smaller scale, we're trialing it with learners from different locations in the COG labs, and then on a larger scale with field testing in lots of different countries.
Great, thanks. Next question. Scrolling. I know there was one about the plugin that you guys used from BCS. Is that plugin available? Is it open source? That's what I'd like to know. Tim's also curious about how you went, but perhaps.
It's not something that we've released into the middle of the community as such. It's something that we've worked with our supplier, and it's been a large thing they've been developing as well. We're very much piloting at the moment. I don't know if our plans will be to release it publicly at some point. So at the moment we're trying to pilot it carefully now, and obviously they've been building and developing. I think they're looking at opportunities on how they can grow it and partner with others first as well. I'm very sure similar plugins will evolve very shortly too. But yeah, it's based on open source technology, but yeah, we've not released it out just yet.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Okay, there has been quite a bit of discussion around, I suppose, the ethics and the viability of using generative AI to provide feedback, and kind of at what point do you say, this is kind of higher stakes, lesser stakes? So you definitely talked about, so this is addressed to the guys from BCS, I guess, around using AI to score student submissions. I've been observing the discussion in the assessment research community, and they're very apprehensive about the idea, particularly turning it into numbers. And I noticed you have developed a rubric there, and you've got the human insight. So I think you're potentially pointing in the right direction. But I'm also got the idea in my head that, ChatGPT, large language models, are essentially word guessing engines. They don't do logic. They can pretend to do logic, but they don't actually do it. So that's kind of, I guess, my fundamental concern behind this kind of stuff. But certainly can see the value in the way you've done it for formative. Just wonder if you've got any comments along those lines.
Yeah, no, definitely. As I said, this is, very early experimentation. If we ever, if we looked to look ahead and think about how we could potentially use this in that sort of arena, there's a whole journey to go on. And even thinking about, would we use ChatGPT? Would we look at developing our own models, using our own data sets that are trained exclusively against our own content? That's still a whole journey to go on. This has been about looking at how we can use it for those short activities to test its capabilities. What was I going to say? Sorry, there was another bit to that. No, I think I might have answered. But oh yeah, and that's it. And obviously we're very aware. We deliver sort of regulated products, so we work in the apprenticeship space, etc. Very, very aware of, say, Ofqual's stance and their standpoint on not using it as the primary means to assess and to award, etc. that's where part of this functionality is looking at, well, making sure we bring in the human, making sure we put those levels in. And actually, if we took this to, a larger assessment, maybe not even summative, but a larger one, it's where you can switch on that action. So the assessor still has a role on gatekeeping in terms of, tweaking that feedback, changing up the mark if they disagree with it. It's a very much experimentation, but it's interesting because when you start to look into it, it starts to get you questioning the reliability of human markers. Even we've seen quality of that vary over the years. AI actually has the opportunity to help sort of standardize that to some degree. So it's just finding the right balance and the right use, so that you're still empowering those assessors and those tutors to work in their way and ensure that what's going out and how we're assessing is fair, valid, and providing the right sort of quality. So I hope that answers the question. I might have done a big old spiel there, but anyway.
No, that's fine. Paul has asked, how did the AI feedback satisfaction scores compare to previous human feedback in those courses or units? Assuming there was such.
Yeah. No, I mean, this, just make it clear, BCS are a rewarding body, so we traditionally haven't delivered our own sort of training. We developed assessments for, our channel partners, our training providers. For us internally, we don't have anything to compare on in terms of like for where we've done this and had human markers. Although I know, actually, sorry, I'm slightly wrong. We have done some things in certain spaces where we have done human marked assessments, but not on this subject matter. Some of where we do want to take it next is looking at refining the plugin, but where we can do comparisons with human marking in this next phase as well, to look at comparing the typical results and how much they're matching up or how much they're differing, because that would be a very interesting experiment to me.
Great, thanks. Priya, you've got your hand up for a long time, so I'll let you jump in.
Yes, Rachel Forsyth made a really good point, and she shared her blog post in the chat. And I think actually it is really, really important to keep the conversation going. And it just occurred to me that we at the eAssessment Association have an AI special interest group. So, in the interests of keeping that conversation going, I'm just going to share the link. I think it's really, really important that everyone in the assessment sphere makes use of all the platforms we have available to keep the conversation going. That's all I wanted to say.
Brilliant, thank you. Not sure that link worked, but let me just.
Oh, did it not work?
Yeah, I think there might have been
it's it's a glitchy one. Let me share it again.
Actually, it does work. You just copy and paste the whole lot into your browser and it does come up with special interest groups. So great. Despite it being weird looking, it does actually function. Oh dear. Yep. Yeah, I think it's this. Yeah, you're right, Tim. Collaborate doesn't recognize it as a link, to just copy and paste it. Yeah, any other questions from people out there? Any thoughts on what we've seen today? Okay, thanks, Tim. I had a question for, I'm going to make up a question for British Council folks. I mean, have you tried the scenario-based testing model on other levels of English testing or other testing approaches, or is this your first foray into this? Be interesting to see how this kind of stuff as a sort of an extended scenario-based branching idea would work in other areas. Thinking back to days when I was teaching in Moodle, where using the workshop module, you can have branching scenarios and sort of mark it, but not as well as what you guys have implemented. So yeah, interested to know if you're exploring other areas beyond the primary English test.
It is the first time we've tried a scenario-based assessment like this, where it's one scenario delivered throughout the whole assessment. It was primarily thinking about the age group of the learners, so we don't have a specific plan to try it out, but we have felt very positive about how it's worked for this one, so we'll see in the future.
Yeah, this kind of scenario-based stuff is certainly used in the health sciences, for example, health area, where those kind of authentic patient interaction situations where you step through a whole procedure could certainly be an application for it. Just curious if you were prepared to share the technology or what you might do with that. Yeah, and potentially there might be some room for AI feedback in some of those responses. I just wondered if there's a crossover between the two as well.
Is that a question for me?
Yeah. Sorry, Peter. Yes.
Yeah. So, well, there's a detailed score report that's linking towards specific can-do statements on there. So the test is intended as certification. It's targeting learners who are moving from primary to secondary, so towards the end of their primary learning. It's not delivering AI feedback at this stage, but that's something to consider in the future.
Yeah, I could see. So, for example, you might have a formative learning version of this test rather than something that's summative that could have different scenarios with feedback generated by the AI plugin. So, just thinking out how to match up the two projects together.
Yes,
might be interesting. Yeah. Okay, so we are at 5 minutes to go, so we still have a few minutes if people want to put some last-minute questions in. Otherwise, what we can do is, Priya, do you want to move on and just sort of talk through the next little bit of dates for diaries?
Absolutely. Yes. So, as I've mentioned before, we are always delighted to have individual members join the eAssessment Association. There are links on our website's homepage, and we'd love you to be part of the conversation. We have lots of online events. You are free to enter yourself or your organisation into our annual awards. If you sign up for newsletters, they are released very frequently. And of course, because we are a membership organisation, membership enables you to vote in our annual general meeting. So there's the link just below. So major dates for the diary. We have a special interest group webinar on the 30th of July, and another big event is the Beyond Multiple Choice Conference, and that's the 29th and the 30th of October, so a little later in the year. But yes, we would love you to join the eAssessment Association, and I think it's a great forum for professionals in the assessment and specifically online assessment sphere. There we are. Thank you to everyone for joining us today.
Yep, thank you very much. That's been great to have you along. I'm still potentially arranging one for August, but we'll see if that happens. Another Transforming Assessment session. Keep your eyes out on our website. The recording will be up on our system relatively soon, by tomorrow. Other than that, thank you very much, John and Peter, for sharing your really interesting projects, and thanks, Priya, for coming along to facilitate the session. So for those people who want to exit the system, just close the browser tab. Otherwise, we will see you all next time. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone.